If you're here, it's because you decided you'd like to learn more about anarchist theory. In this series, we'll be taking a look at Ericco Malatesta's 1892 pamphlet, Anarchy. My name is Sean, and welcome to Germinal. Before we start, I'd like to preface this by saying that these videos don't replace Malatesta's book. What I strongly recommend you to do is to read a chapter and then watch the video about this chapter. For example, this video is about chapter 1, so I strongly encourage you to read it before watching the rest of this video. The link to the text is in the description. The audiobook version is also available on YouTube, and it takes less than 10 minutes to listen to chapter 1. If you don't like reading, well, if I can make you read one short chapter at a time and help you understand the content of each chapter, it will be a great achievement. If after reading chapter 1 you decide that reading just isn't for you, that's fine. You'll still learn a whole lot about anarchist theory from these videos. So, when you're trying to define a word, a good place to start can be etymology. That's how Malatesta opens the first chapter of his book by stating that the Greek roots of the word anarchy mean without government. But this is not how we usually understand it. The common usage of the word is highly pejorative and is synonymous with chaos and disorder. But why? Malatesta thinks that it comes from a prejudiced view that government is necessary for any society to function, that a lack of government is some kind of pathological problem and would necessarily lead to a dysfunctional and chaotic society. This unjustified belief comes from habit. Humans adapt to their condition and pass on habits, but this does not justify these conditions nor these habits. For example, descendants of a long line of slaves could believe that slavery is an essential condition of life because it has always been that way. This was also noted by Etienne de la Boétie in the Discourse of Voluntary Servitude written in 1576. We should exonerate and forgive them since they have not seen even the shadow of liberty, and, being quite unaware of it, cannot perceive the evil endured through their own slavery. Similarly, workers depend on work to feed themselves and believe that it's because of business owners that they don't die of starvation. They believe that these masters feed them and then ask themselves, how would we eat if there were no masters to feed us? Another example Malatesta gives is the image of someone whose legs were bound from birth but still managed to walk. That person could think that the very reason they can walk is because of these bonds, which really are just limiting them. Now, imagine a whole system of ideas constructed around the necessity for this person to wear bonds to their legs. Doctors would come up with explanations and theories as to why, by removing these bonds, this person could not walk. That person would protect these bonds with their life and consider anyone who are trying to free them an enemy. These constructed ideas, the one that try to explain how the state is necessary, are very present in our society, and Malatesta, throughout this short book, will attack these ideas. He says that, like the worker or the slave, we believe that without an authority, we could not live properly. He also says that, like for the bound person, we live in cultures in which the idea that government is necessary is hammered into our heads by the masters, the priests, the teachers, etc. This is why the word anarchy has been synonymous with chaos and destruction. We believe to be dependent on an authority for our societies to survive. But anarchy isn't the first word to be misused for political reasons. Just a couple of centuries ago, when people believed in the necessity of a one-man government, a monarchy, the word republic was used as a synonym of chaos and disorder. So if we can convince people that not only is the government not needed, but that we could do much better without one, the word anarchy could be understood as we, anarchists, understand it. Natural order, unity of human needs and the interests of all, complete freedom within complete solidarity. Now, before going any further into the book, Malatesta feels like it's necessary to define the state. It's the sum total of the political, legislative, judiciary, military, and financial institutions through which the management of their own affairs, the control over their personal behavior, the responsibility for their personal safety are taken away from the people and entrusted to others who, by usurpation or delegation, are vested with the powers to make the laws for everything and everybody. The idea of delegation here is pretty important as it implies representational democracy, which Malatesta goes back to in the following chapters. He follows this by saying that because we often mix up the idea of state with the idea of society, he will use the term government instead of the state. He also defines what he means by the abolition of the state. The destruction of all political order based on authority, and the creation of a society of free and equal members based on a harmony of interest and the voluntary participation of everybody in carrying out social responsibilities. So when anarchists say they want to abolish the state, they don't mean that they want to abolish social cohesion, collectivities, and social bonds. They believe that these things will actually be strengthened once authority is no longer. If you want to know why, join us next episode for Chapter 2 of Malatesta's Anarchy.